I don't even know how to begin this without sounding completely insane, but here it goes. It all started so unpredictably, like one of those ordinary days that you barely remember. I was crushing at my stepmom's place, as usual. She's 40, smart, beautiful, and the kind of person who makes even the most mundane things like cooking or cleaning feel oddly comforting. I was 20 and honestly just glad to be around her. That day, we had spent hours just watching movies, doing chores, nothing out of the ordinary. But somehow, by the end of it, everything was different. There wasn't a single defining moment, nothing dramatic or earth-shattering, yet the air between us felt charged, like a string pulled tight, ready to snap. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something had shifted. A look held for just a second too long, a laugh that seemed to linger in the quiet of the evening. It was subtle but undeniable. The next morning, I woke up early, still trying to shake off whatever weird energy I'd felt the night before. Mom was in the shower, her voice faintly humming over the rush of water. The melody was indistinct, but it was soft, almost soothing, like a private moment I wasn't supposed to hear. I lay there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. Was it just admiration? Gratitude for her kindness? Or was it something more? The thought scared me, made my chest tighten in a way I wasn't ready to admit to myself. Curiosity got the better of me, stupid, impulsive curiosity. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea, but I found myself standing outside the bathroom door before I even realized I'd gotten up. The steam seeped through the edges, warm and fragrant, carrying the unmistakable scent of jasmine shampoo. It was a smell I associated with her, a quiet part of her presence that always lingered even after she'd left the room. My hand hovered over the doorknob, and my thoughts raced. Just a peek, I told myself. It's harmless. But the moment I cracked the door, it betrayed me. The creak was sharp, cutting through the quiet like a slap. My heart stopped, a wave of panic washing over me so fast I almost forgot to breathe. The bathroom was dimly lit, steam curling in lazy spirals, and the sound of water was suddenly deafening. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out every rational thought. I froze. My hand gripped the doorknob as if it could anchor me, but I was rooted in place, unable to move forward or back. The door was open barely an inch, just enough for a rush of humid air to brush against my face. My stomach twisted with guilt, shame, and something darker, something I didn't want to name. This wasn't just about curiosity. It wasn't just a stupid, harmless mistake. This was a line I wasn't supposed to cross, and yet there I was, teetering on the edge. I could hear her behind the shower curtain, the faint rustle of movement as she shifted. My mind raced, frantically trying to rationalize my actions, to convince myself this wasn't as bad as it felt. She wouldn't know, I thought. It's nothing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. It was everything. It was a betrayal of the quiet trust we built, and the weight of that realization was crushing. Then, as if the universe itself decided to intervene, the water shut off. My breath caught in my throat, and I stumbled back, suddenly desperate to retreat. The sound of the water dripping into the drain was painfully loud, a steady rhythm counting down the seconds until I was caught. I snapped the door shut, too fast, too loud. The sound echoed down the hallway, and I cringed, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. "Hello." Her voice was soft, curious, not angry, at least not yet. It sent a fresh wave of panic through me. I took a shaky step back, then another, my bare feet making no sound against the floor. I bolted to the living room, my chest heaving as if I'd just sprinted a mile. I grabbed my phone and pretended to scroll, the screen glowing blankly in front of me. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold it. When Mom finally emerged, she was wrapped in her robe, her damp hair curling at the edges. She smiled at me, her expression warm but laced with something else. Curiosity, maybe suspicion. I couldn't tell. "Morning," she said, her voice light and casual, but there was a pause, a beat too long, that made my stomach twist. "Morning," I croaked, trying to sound normal. But my voice cracked, and I felt the flush creep up my neck. I coughed, feigning nonchalance, and kept my eyes glued to the phone, as if it held the secrets to the universe. She lingered for a moment, her gaze steady, and I could feel it, heavy on me like a weight I couldn't shake. Then, with a shrug, she turned and moved to the kitchen, her footsteps soft against the floor. I exhaled shakily, the knot in my chest loosening just enough to let me breathe. But the guilt didn't go away. It sat there, cold and unyielding, a reminder of what I'd done and what it meant. Because no matter how much I wanted to pretend otherwise, I couldn't deny the truth anymore. It wasn't just a moment of stupidity. It was her, Samantha. And that scared me more than anything. The knock startled me out of my spiral of thoughts. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stay composed, even as my mind raced with possibilities. When she walked in, wrapped in just a towel, her damp hair clinging to her shoulders, the air seemed to shift. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, more alive. She didn't wait for an invitation, didn't hesitate as she crossed the threshold like she owned the space, and in some unspoken way, maybe she did. I sat up straighter, trying to look nonchalant, but the way she moved, the confidence in her step, unraveled me. She stopped just a few feet away, her gaze steady, and then she said it, calm, casual, almost playful. "I know you were spying on me." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My stomach flipped, and the world tilted slightly on its axis. I opened my mouth to protest, to stammer out some clumsy excuse, but the words wouldn't come. Her expression didn't waver though. She looked at me like she could see straight through me, like she already knew every lie I might attempt to tell. And then it happened. The towel slipped. It wasn't dramatic. There was no awkward scramble, no gasp of surprise. It was deliberate, or at least it felt deliberate. She didn't flinch or rush to cover herself. She just stood there, unapologetic, her confidence filling the room like a tangible force. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart thundered in my chest, so loud I was sure she could hear it. I couldn't look away. She was breathtaking, every inch of her radiating a kind of beauty that was more than just physical. It was her presence, her ease, her complete lack of shame or hesitation. She wasn't fazed, not even a little. She moved toward me and sat down on the bed, her proximity sending a jolt of electricity through me. And then, without a word, she kissed me. The first touch of her lips against mine was soft, tentative, but it ignited something inside me. The world seemed to blur and fade, leaving only the two of us in sharp focus. Her hands found their way to my face, her fingers cool against my flushed skin, and I melted into her, my own hands unsure but eager, resting on her hips. For a while, that's all that was kissing. Time felt meaningless, a concept too distant to matter. Her lips moved against mine like she'd been doing this forever, like she knew exactly how to unravel me with every touch, every soft press and lingering pause. My hands stayed light on her, cautious, afraid of doing something wrong, but she guided me without a word, her movements fluid and deliberate. The minutes stretched into something infinite, 20-30, I couldn't tell. Her scent was intoxicating, that familiar jasmine now mingling with something deeper, uniquely hers. Her breath was warm against my skin, her presence overwhelming in the best way possible. I was aware of every little thing, how her fingers trailed down my neck, the way her body fit so perfectly against mine, the soft sound of her breathing between kisses. And then something inside me snapped. It was like a dam breaking, all the hesitation and restraint I'd been holding on to suddenly spilling over. I couldn't stop myself anymore. I didn't want to. My hands found their way around her waist, pulling her closer, and she responded without hesitation, her arms wrapping around my shoulders as she pressed herself against me. I pulled her onto the bed, the motion instinctive, natural, like this was exactly where we were meant to be. She laughed softly, the sound low and warm, sending another shiver down my spine. And then we were tangled together, her legs entwined with mine, her body warm and impossibly close. My hands roamed over her back, her sides, every curve and line I'd only ever dreamed of touching. She held onto me like she didn't want to let go, her hands threading through my hair, her lips moving against mine with an intensity that left me breathless. The rest of the world didn't exist. It was just us, kissing, holding, exploring each other like we had all the time in the world. The weight of her against me, the softness of her skin, the way she seemed to mold herself to me, it was intoxicating. There were no words, no need for them. Everything we might have said was spoken in the way our bodies moved, the way our breaths mingled and our hearts pounded in unison. and for the first time, I let myself forget everything else. When I woke up, the sunlight was streaming through the thin curtains, casting soft, golden patterns on the walls. For a moment, I forgot where I was, the hazy warmth of the previous night still clinging to my skin. Then it hit me, and my heart did a slow, heady flip. Samantha. The bed felt too big without her next to me, the absence of her warmth stark and almost jarring. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and that's when I noticed the smell, something savory, buttery, familiar. Breakfast. The kind of smell that made mornings feel less daunting. I followed it, the wooden floor cool under my bare feet, until I found her in the kitchen. She was standing at the stove, her hair still damp and curling slightly at the ends. She wore one of her oversized shirts, the kind that could have been anyone else's, but on her, it looked like it belonged, like it was made just for her. The fabric skimmed her thighs, and I couldn't help but notice how effortlessly beautiful she looked, even doing something as ordinary as flipping pancakes. When she turned and saw me, her face lit up with a smile that felt like a private little sunrise just for me. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft and easy, like we'd been waking up like this together for years. She handed me a plate without a second thought, as if this moment was the most natural thing in the world. "You should shower," she added casually, her eyes twinkling with a mix of mischief and something else I couldn't quite place. I wanted to linger, to watch her move around the kitchen, but I nodded, muttered something vaguely coherent, and shuffled off toward the bathroom. My mind was a swirl of emotions, contentment, disbelief, a giddy kind of excitement I hadn't felt in years. The hot water was a welcome distraction, steam filling the small space as I let the night's events replay in my mind. Every kiss, every touch, it felt like a dream, too perfect to be real. I closed my eyes, leaning against the tiled wall, letting the water wash over me. Then the sound of the door opening snapped me back to the present. I froze, my heart leaping to my throat. Before I could say anything, Samantha stepped in, completely unbothered by the intrusion. She didn't hesitate, didn't ask for permission. She just slid in like it was the most normal thing in the world. My breath caught as I took her in, her skin still glowing faintly from the morning light, her confidence disarming and magnetic. She smiled at me, a small, knowing smile, as if she could read every thought racing through my head. We didn't say a word. There was no need to. The silence between us wasn't awkward or uncertain. It was full, electric, charged with everything we couldn't quite articulate. She stepped under the stream of water, her hair darkening as it soaked, tiny rivulets tracing down her shoulders and back. I couldn't help myself. I reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face, and she leaned into my touch, her eyes closing for just a moment. Then she kissed me, slow and deliberate, her lips warm and soft against mine, despite the coolness of the water now running over us. The shower became a blur of shared intimacy, a mix of laughter and stolen kisses. She grabbed the soap, her movements deliberate but playful, her hands gliding over my arms, my chest, and then my back. It wasn't rushed or urgent, it was tender, almost reverent. I returned the gesture, my hands lingering on her shoulders, her waist, marveling at how perfectly she fit into my space. At one point, the water turned cold, making us both gasp and laugh. She pressed her forehead to mine, her wet hair sticking to both of us as we stood there, shivering but unwilling to step away from each other. It was ridiculous and imperfect, and somehow exactly what I wanted, what I needed. By the time we finally turned off the water, my hands were pruny and my face ached from smiling so much. We wrapped ourselves in towels, dripping water across the floor as we stumbled back into the kitchen. Samantha was still laughing softly, her eyes bright and alive in a way that made my chest ache. And in that moment, watching her pour coffee and hum to herself, I realized something. It wasn't just her beauty or her confidence or the way she kissed me like the world was ending. It was her. The way she made the ordinary feel extraordinary, the way she saw me, really saw me, and made me feel like I belonged, like I was home. That evening, the living room was bathed in the soft glow of the television, the sound of some romantic comedy filling the air. Samantha had picked the movie, she always did. I didn't mind though, I never watched them for the plot when I was with her. My focus wasn't on the screen but on her, curled up on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, a blanket draped lazily over her lap. I couldn't focus on the movie. My thoughts were an endless loop of questions, doubts, and the memory of her lips on mine, her laughter echoing in the bathroom, the way her smile made the rest of the world fade away. What were we now? Lovers? Something else entirely? The uncertainty was maddening, but I didn't dare voice it. Not yet. I didn't want to ruin whatever fragile, unspoken thing we were building. Samantha caught me staring and arched a brow. "You're missing the best part," she said, her voice teasing, though her eyes held a hint of curiosity. "Am I?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. My gaze flicked to her lips, and for a moment, I thought I'd imagined her slight, knowing smile. Before I could second-guess myself, I leaned over, closing the distance between us. The kiss was tentative at first, almost shy, but she met me halfway, her hand finding its way to my face, her fingers brushing my jawline. The movie faded into the background, the flickering light from the screen casting shifting shadows around us. Things escalated quickly. The blanket slipped to the floor, forgotten, as we melted into each other. Our hands tangled in my hair, mine found the curve of her waist, and the world outside that small, dimly lit room ceased to exist. Time became meaningless. Was it minutes? Hours? I couldn't tell. All I knew was her, the warmth of her skin, the taste of her lips, the quiet sighs that escaped between kisses. At one point, she pulled back, just enough to rest her forehead against mine. "You're going to make me late tomorrow," she said, her voice a mix of amusement and something softer, something deeper. I smiled, breathless. "Worth it." Her answer came in the form of another kiss, deeper and more lingering than the last. We stayed like that, tangled up in each other, until the room was silent, the movie long forgotten, the credits rolling on a screen neither of us had noticed. The next few days passed in a blur of longing and stolen moments. Samantha would leave for work early in the morning, dressed in her usual polished attire, her hair perfectly in place, her lips curling into a quick smile before the door clicked shut. And every time she left, I felt her absence like an ache, a dull, persistent pull in my chest. I tried to keep myself busy, but everything reminded me of her. The way her coffee mug sat on the counter half empty, the faint trace of her perfume lingering in the air, the memory of her laugh echoing in the quiet spaces of the apartment. I'd count the hours until she came home, and when she finally did, it was as if the world clicked back into place. Our evenings became a ritual of rediscovery. No matter how late she worked, how tired she was, the moment she stepped through the door, it was like we hadn't spent the day apart. We'd kiss in the hallway, her bag slipping from her shoulder, her shoes kicked off haphazardly. We'd talk about nothing and everything, her day at work, some silly thing I'd seen online, the mundane details of our lives that somehow felt meaningful when shared. And always, there was the kissing. Long, slow kisses that blurred the lines of time, that made me forget anything existed beyond her. Sometimes we'd make it to the couch, sometimes we wouldn't. We'd just hold on to each other, as if letting go might shatter the fragile electric connection we'd found. But amidst the bliss, a small, nagging doubt lingered in the back of my mind. What were we? What did this mean for her, for me, for us? I wanted to ask, to define it, but every time I opened my mouth, the words felt heavy, unwelcome. So I kept them to myself, hoping the answers would come in their own time. Because in those moments, with her in my arms, the questions didn't seem to matter. All that mattered was her. The way she looked at me, like I was the only thing she saw. The way she kissed me, like she couldn't get enough. The way she made me feel, like I was enough. And for now, that was more than enough. That evening, the apartment radiated a kind of warmth it hadn't before, and I could feel the anticipation buzzing in my chest as I put the final touches on the table. Candles flickered gently, casting soft shadows on the walls, and the faint scent of lavender from the bath I'd drawn lingered in the air. It wasn't just about impressing Samantha, it was about showing her how much she meant to me. I wanted her to see, to feel, how deeply she'd worked her way into my heart. When I heard the keys in the lock, my pulse quickened. Samantha stepped inside, her expression shifting from exhaustion to surprise as her eyes swept over the transformed space. Her lips parted, and for a moment, she looked at me like I'd given her the world. "You did all this?" she asked, her voice soft, incredulous. I walked over to her, unable to keep the grin off my face. "Of course, you deserve it." I kissed her gently, savoring the moment before handing her the neatly folded clothes I'd set aside. "Go change. "Dinner's ready." As she disappeared into the bedroom, I couldn't help but second-guess everything. Was it too much? Too soon? But when she returned, her hair brushed back and her face free of the day's stress, I knew it was worth it. She looked stunning, even in something as simple as a fresh pair of leggings and a loose top. It wasn't the clothes. It was her, the effortless grace she carried herself with, the way her eyes sparkled when she was genuinely happy. We sat down at the table, and the meal turned out better than I'd hoped. Sandra moaned softly as she tasted the first bite, and my heart swelled with pride. We talked about everything and nothing, laughing between bites, the kind of laughter that makes your cheeks ache but feels impossibly good. The way she looked at me, like I was the only person in the room, made every second feel like a dream. When the plates were cleared, she stood up and walked around the table, her hand reaching for mine. "Come with me," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. I followed her to the bedroom, my heart pounding in anticipation. She didn't hesitate, didn't shy away. Instead, she pushed me gently onto the bed, her eyes alight with a playful mischief that sent a shiver down my spine. "You've been taking care of me all evening," she murmured, leaning in close. "Now it's my turn." Her lips met mine, and whatever composure I had left dissolved in an instant. This time, she took the lead, her movements deliberate and confident, her hands exploring as though she were memorizing every inch of me. It was intoxicating, being with her like this, surrendering to the moment to her. The night blurred into a tapestry of touches, whispers, and shared breaths. We didn't sleep much, but neither of us seemed to care. In the quiet moments when her head rested on my chest and our fingers intertwined, I felt something shift inside me, a certainty I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge before. This wasn't just physical. It wasn't just a fling. It was something more, something deeper. By the time morning arrived, the first rays of sunlight spilling through the curtains, I was wide awake, her soft breathing a melody against my skin. I turned my head to look at her, and in that moment I knew. I didn't need labels or declarations. I didn't need to define it. All I needed was her. Samantha stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She smiled sleepily, and it was the kind of smile that could light up even the darkest corners of my soul. "Morning," she whispered, her voice still heavy with sleep. "Morning," I replied, my voice soft, almost reverent. As the day began and life crept back into focus, the doubts I'd once had faded into the background. Whatever this was, whatever we were, it was real. And it worked. Samantha and I, together, just made sense in a way nothing else ever had. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything.